started teaching with the optimism that only a new teacher can have. But I quickly realized my students were facing the same challenges I had faced as a student. I needed my students to be successful in the content, of course, but even more than that, I wanted to teach my students tools that would help them be successful. I wanted my students to approach their learning as if it were their job. I knew the tools I would teach them in my classroom were tools they could use all their lives. We are pushing our students towards success when we teach them organizational skills. We hold them accountable and guide them to take ownership of their learning. As educators, we always hear about filling our own toolboxes, but we don't hear about making sure that our students have the correct tools and necessary tools to be successful. So my talk is about educators giving students those tools and then holding the students accountable for using those tools to be successful. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I didn't know how to prepare for my studies. And when I became a teacher, I realized that my students faced the same issues I had faced when I was in college. Believe it or not, organization does not come naturally to most 8th grade students. And so what I did was I taught them how to be organized. I showed them how to set up a notebook, how to take notes. In addition to the content, I was teaching them the tools that they would be able to use for their studying, not only in my class, the rest of their classes, but all the way up through college. I would give them what was called at the time a GEMS card. It was just an index card. But they were to write what they thought was most important on that card and then use that card on their major tests. They didn't realize what they were actually doing by writing down on the card what they thought was most important was they were actually preparing themselves for their assessment. I decided to reach out to my students and ask them if there was one thing that I did in my class that had an impact on you, what was it? And it was amazing. I probably had over 150 students respond to my Facebook post. And this is how the talk came about. They talked about the journal. They talked about how they hated the journal, how they hated doing it, but now they're using it in the rest of their life and in their career. They talked about the gems of wisdom and how that made them focus on what was the most important concept or the big idea that they needed to know for their assessment. And they also talked about the fact that I loved them. And they realized, even at that age, 12, 13, 14 years old, that even though I was a tough teacher, I was tough on them because I wanted them to be successful. In fact, that was one of my main phrases. I am here to make you successful. And so students, even now, will post things on Facebook and say, Miss Navarre was my favorite teacher, not because she was easy, but because she loved us and she held us accountable for our learning. I think if I were to give another person a piece of advice, I would say, go to those who know you best and find out what they think that you do is something special, because everything that I did in my classroom I thought was normal. I didn't have time to go to other teachers' classrooms when I was teaching because I was full scale working on my lesson plans and grading papers. And so I thought everybody did what I did in the classroom. Everybody has a gift. And you may not even realize that that is your gift, but those that surround you, they'll pull it out of you. The reason teachers need to share their ideas, for one, it holds them accountable to what they are saying that they're doing. And then two, I think it gives their students an idea of what their teachers may be passionate about. Sharing your idea makes you hone in on that one thing that you feel that you did well or better than anybody else. because you're going on camera saying, this is what I did. You have got to be truly authentic, because people are going to watch it and know whether you're telling the truth or not. I had a ton of my students find me on Facebook after I left the classroom, and one of them responded with a picture of her notebook, what I called their science Bible. And she put a picture of it on notebook and said, I hated doing this journal while I was in Miss Navarre's class, but I'm in law school now, and I find myself using the exact same skills that I used in that class to tell myself through law school. And that just was such a blessing to my heart to realize that I actually had been able to impact that student's future and make a difference in her life.